So today we're here with the week 3 assignment for the WATS 3020 course, and that is WATS 3020 Node 2, which you can see we're looking at the GitHub repository on the SU WebDev GitHub account. So to get started, what we want to do is go ahead and fork that. So I'll go ahead and fork that to my personal GitHub. And now that that's done, let's go ahead and take a look at what we actually have to do first. So similar to the Node 1 assignment, these are a bunch of mini programs that we're going to be doing in JavaScript programs that will be running Node to run them. So we have two different versions of a FizzBuzz program, and we'll talk about that more, but FizzBuzz is basically a basic algorithm people sometimes use to kind of do basic programming, like show that you know how to do certain things. Then we're going to go ahead and reverse a string. So take a string like hello and make it backwards. So that would be OLLEH. We're going to actually do that in two different ways as well. And then we're also going to take a thing where we go through and count how many letters, the number of characters in a string, and output that. And again, that's all going to be in Node. And the topics we're working on here, we're covering arrays, loops, iteration, and we're going to work with objects as well, and a little bit about functions. So let's go ahead and get a copy of this on my local computer. So we're going to do that by going to clone, copy that, go to the terminal. I have to make sure I'm in this is where my code folder. We'll do git clone. And all right, it looks like we're set. So we'll go ahead and get started on that first part here in a minute. So the first part of this assignment is the folder labeled 1-fizzbuzz, a program that counts from 1 to a given integer, printing out fizz if the number is divisible by 3, or buzz if it's divisible by 5, or fizzbuzz if it's divisible by both 3 and 5. My understanding, I'm not an expert at this, is that this is actually based on a game that people play with children, like in classrooms, because it's teaching kids like division or something. I don't know. We're going to do it because it does come up a lot in, I don't know if it's like a popular interview question, but it's definitely like a basic algorithm thing that people like to use. So we'll go ahead and look at the file, index.js, and see what we have here. So the one thing is, in this week, you'll see that each of these mini programs has this little comment block at the top. The idea is that when you're writing code, comments are important to communicate things. And although you won't necessarily write a block like this on single thing you do, for a program like this, where this is like a little mini program, this kind of stuff is actually good to communicate to people what the program does. So that's something actually you'll want to do. I'll do this one, and in the future you can type your own. And like I said, this is something that you want to think about what kind of information you want to communicate to people. So in this case, I will actually take the description from the README and then input an integer, a list of integers. Or actually, I guess, list of numbers with fizz if divisible by 3, buzz if divisible by 5, and fizzbuzz if divisible by both. That's fine, I can't spell. Usage, this is similar to what we were writing before. 1-fizzbuzz integer. All right, so we got that. Like I said, feel free to write your own better description. I just wanted to get that done. Okay, so the first to do we have is something we recognized from last week's assignment, is check if the input is not an integer. Also, want to make sure it's a number. So Now, we'll see that we're still using the get integer argument module. So anyone that remembers last week will know that what I just wrote is kind of unnecessary, but we're still doing it. And then we'll want to make a statement here. Let's see, fizz buzz integer. All right, so we got that done. So now we actually have the next part. So okay, so assuming we've got good data, what do? We want to loop from 1 to the value of input. So for a moment, think about what does that look like. So if someone inputs 5, we expect this to loop through and print out 1, 2, fizz for buzz. Or in this case, actually, it's the number then fizz. It works either way. Because that's like a very small change to the code. So that's what we want it to look like. So we want to do that printing. Now we actually need to go ahead and take a look at what the for loop syntax looks like. So let's open up the MDN for loop. Oh my goodness, there we go. Okay, so this is the official syntax. If we look at this example, hopefully it makes sense. For, and then parenthesis, we declare the variable that's going to be the counter. Then we set it to what it starts at. We say keep doing it while this is true, and every time you loop, do this. In this case, plus is add 1. Okay, and then this is what happens every loop. That seems pretty simple. So we'll go over there. We'll do for let I equals 1, because we actually want to start at 1. We want it keep doing it while it's less than or equal to the number of input, and every time you loop, add 1. Okay, makes sense? Okay, now test for divisible of 3, 5, and 15. So in this case, you'll see that we kind of already laid out the basic structure there. You'll see that this one does fizz buzz. Well, we said that would be if it was divisible by 3 or 5, and 5 rather. So if we think about it, if we use math, that means it's divisible by 15. And we know, if we remember last week, we kind of figured out divisibility stuff by using the modulo operator. So we'll say if I modulo 15 equals 0. Right? And then similarly for fizz, fizz is 3. Modulo 3 equals 0. Modulo 5 equals 0. Else. So else is going to be any other type. And you'll see that we have the same template literal where we're going to put print the number and then the appropriate word. And that should be it. So we'll save that. And let's go over to our terminal. CD WATS 20 node 2. So let's do node 1.fizzbuzz. Okay, so it's doing that thing. It's telling us, hey, we need a number. Let's say a string. Still works. Let's try 15. So see, it prints this list: 1, 2, 3 fizz, 4, 5 buzz, 6 fizz, and those are all correct. So it's actually doing what we expect it to. Now you may be wondering, well, wait a second though. Why does let's say if it's 15, wouldn't this be true and this be true? This is the thing with the if statements, if else's, if else, if, is that once this one happens, it doesn't execute any of the other things. So you can kind of be confident that it won't make that mistake. But so whereas compared if we had done just separate if statements, like if it was like that instead, we'll get rid of the else, then this one would run as well. So we'd actually end up with, we'd end up with it would say, 15 fizzbuzz, 15 fizz, 15 buzz, which is not what we wanted. So there you go. That is the assignment and is typical, or at least that exercise. We'll do git add, git commit finished one fizzbuzz, git push. And there we go. We're done with the very first part. So now we're going to move to part 2, which is 2-fizzbuzz-fun. So I want to let you down right now. The fun doesn't stand for fun. It means function. This is not going to be fun. Or maybe it will. Who knows? So let's go ahead and take a look. It's basically, we're doing the same thing. Except now we're doing it with a function. So we'll learn more about functions in a few weeks. But the idea is that functions are ways that you organize code. You do stuff that's repeated easily. So I'm actually going to copy a lot from the part 1 here. So let's go to part 1. I'll copy this business because this is the same. What did it actually copy? Oh, the whole if. Okay. So let's take this and paste. So that's done. Okay, we have the same loop as before. I equals 1. I less than equal to input. I plus plus plus. So now you'll see, though, what it's doing here is it's saying, for each one, all it's saying is, I'm going to print out the number and then fizzbuzz I. So fizzbuzz is a function we're going to write that checks to see what the output is and returns the output. So the important part to know for functions is the return statement. So this function basically says, okay, I've received a number n. Now what do I do? Do I return something? So if we think about it, we're going to say if, similar to before, but you see it's not I, because although the variable is called I down here, and it gets passed into fizzbuzz as I, fizzbuzz called it n. You'll see as you work more with that, it's ideas about scoping and whatever. So like all this function needs to know is that there's a number called n, and to do stuff with it. So we're going to say, hey, if n modulo 15 is equal to 0, right? This is the fizzbuzz case. We're going to say return fizzbuzz. So we're saying that the result of this fizzbuzz I will be the text fizzbuzz if the number is divisible by 15. Right? And then it's going to look, other than that, very similar to before, to the point where I'm actually just going to copy this. Although now, as I'm doing that, I realize copying it may not be that useful. So in this case, we're returning nothing. So all this is saying is, if it's divisible by 15, oh, whoops, we have to change those to n. Because if we left it at I, it wouldn't, it'd be a reference issue. It doesn't, this function doesn't know what I is. I is only something defined over here in this loop. So let's go ahead and see if this works. Everything's set up. We'll do node 2-fizzbuzz fun string. Okay, so it still gives us the usage statement. And let's try 15. And we'll see it's the same output as before. Fizz, buzz, fizz, fizz, buzz, fizz, fizz, buzz. So it's what we expected. And you'll see that in this case, it does actually make the code a little bit more, maybe a little bit more straightforward, or maybe not, depending on you. But like, if you think about it, it's saying, hey, do this loop, and for every time you loop, print out the number and the fizz buzz, rather than having that big loop. So it's a way you can organize code. And like I said, we'll see more about that as we go forward. But for now, we've completed the assignment, so we're going to go over and do our standard git add git commit finished part 2 and git push. And there we go. We've completed part 2 of this assignment. Okay, now we move on to part 3, which is reversing a string. So it's a program that takes a string as input and reverses it using JavaScript string methods. So I'm going to copy that. So we'll go over to the file index. So first we have the comment template, right? This is the same thing. You want to describe what the program does. Tell its input, a string, output, the string, but reversed. And usage is node 3 reverse string. Okay. So now you'll see this is actually really straightforward. The first thing is check to see if there's actually a string argument there. So remember from last week, this is just, is there even input? Because if it's right, if it's an empty string, it'll come up as false. So if this is, give them the usage statement, which we wrote up there. 3 reverse string. Oh, whoops. Ha. Look at that. Forgot to actually put the string up in my comment. So you'll see that that's it. Now, why is that? Because this uses a bunch of JavaScript string methods, right? So we have 3 here, string and array methods. We have split. So split takes this string. So let's say I put hello, and it breaks it up into an array, HELLO. And then reverses a string, so OLLEH, and then join puts it back together as a string. So it's kind of cheating because JavaScript has all these string methods that are available to us. But let's see if it works. So we go over to our terminal and we type in node 3 reverse string, and it, whoop, that didn't work. So it's an error on, where is it? Unexpected token. Where do I have too many tokens? See, this is troubleshooting, right? That's correct. Okay. This is why you put semicolons, by the way, because you see the only change I made was putting semicolons at the end of lines. We'll talk a little bit more about automatic semicolon injection or insertion a little bit later, but just keep in mind that the JavaScript expects a semicolon at the end of every line. If you don't put them, it tries to figure it out, but it can be wrong sometimes, and that's actually what happened here. Okay, so now we'll try it with hello, and you'll see it says ole. We could try it with race car, and well, now it puts race car. That's a bad example, but you get the point. We can even try it with something bigger, so we can say, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya, and we get whatever that is. So it's working, so we'll go ahead and add everything, commit it, finish part 3, and push it. And we are done with part 3. Okay, now that we finished the reverse string program using the internal JavaScript string methods, now we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, I suppose. We're going to do it not using those methods. So we're going to iterate through the string and reverse it. So let's go take a look at that. Although I'm going to copy that. Just doing the comment. Ren, you should be doing this yourself as well. You actually, I mean, it's required part of the assignment, but whatever. Yeah. Okay, so you see here we have a function laid out here, and then we have a function laid out here, and then we have our main program block. So once again, we have our good old check to make sure we have good input. And that's actually a thing that when you think about it, whenever you have a program where you're taking input from the user, you want to have some sort of quality control. You want to make sure that what the user has given you is what you want. One thing you'll see, for example, on like web forms, where it's like, oh, enter an email address. You want to make sure that they've given you something that at least looks like an email address. You know, one of the common things is to check to see if there's an @ sign in the middle, right, or at some point in it. So that's basically just what we're doing here. Is we're making sure that we have something that we can work with. Usage node forward reverse string iterate string. Okay. So you'll see that actually this part of the program right here already has this result with full iteration, and then it runs that result. So now we actually have to go fill out that function. So what it's saying is it gets str, a string, and it already sets up a empty string that's the result. That's what we're going to return. We're going to actually create it. So the first thing is we want to loop from the end of the string to the beginning. So this we did loops before where we started it at a low number and went up, but nothing says that we can't just do it the other way around. So we're say let I equal stir dot. So dot length is a property of strings, and it's essentially how long is a string. And we're going to say to the beginning, so I greater than or equal to 0. 0, gosh, typo. And then now we're going to do I minus minus. So like plus plus, but minus minus. So we have that. And now all we're going to say is, oops, we're going to make a mess. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to say result equals result. You'd use, was it plus equals if you want? So actually, let's just do that so we can be cool. Plus equals. And then we want whatever character is at this part of the string. So we're going to say string and then the ith, where I is the one. So we start at the end and go to the beginning. So you notice that we didn't do anything funny to string, but we're still able to refer to each character like it's an array. And this is kind of just because that's the way strings have always been. In a lot of these languages, they're basically just an array of characters and return result. So let's go ahead and see if that works. We'll save that, go over to node. So node 3-reverse, or actually, I'm sorry, it's 4, isn't it? Yeah, it's 4. Reverse string iterate. Okay, so our usage message works. Let's try hello. Result with full iteration, olé. So that's that. So now there's a stretch goal here to do it where you only do it where you do half the amount of iteration. So I'm not going to do that for you here, but I want to talk a little bit about what would it mean to do it that way. Well, what they're saying is instead of going from I to the length of the string, -1, right, because the string starts at 0. So instead of doing that, what we want to say is, well, why don't we do something like, this is just in his example, we're not doing it. We'd say, okay, let's say let I equals 0, and then we're going to say I is less than the length of the string divided by 2, I plus plus, okay? And then we're going to go through and maybe do something where we're going to say, so we'll need some sort of a result. In this case, probably want to do something like an array and say, okay, then we'll say, let's say result I equals one thing. And then you want to do result length, or str.length minus I equals another thing. So I'm not gonna fill that, but that's kind of the idea. So as you go from 0 to halfway, you're making the first element equal to the last one, and then the last one equal to the first. So something with string and something with string. And then what you want to do is, because this is an array, you'll just want to use the join function. So you'd say probably something like return result dot join, So it's going to be something like that. Obviously, I'm not finishing it here because, you know, it's a stretch goal. Actually, I'll leave my stretch goal. And then once you've done that, you're just going to want to do something similar to this, console.log, result with half iteration, and then call this function reverse with half iteration input. Now, if you want a really exciting stretch goal, and actually I'll go ahead and add this to see if you can somehow figure out how to actually see how long it takes. Basically using some sort of time method. JavaScript has some time functions, and say, okay, from start to finish, how long did half iteration take? From start to finish, how long did full iteration take? Now, if you're going to do that, you may want to like get some really big strings, like test it on, you know, something long, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You don't need to do that, but that way there's the differences in time are something that you'll be able to see. And you may actually see that, wow, one of them is substantially faster than the other. And if you really want to do that, try adding that to the other, to the 3- reverse string as well, and see of the three ways, which is fastest, which is slowest. Does that surprise you? But again, that's a stretch goal. I'll be sure to add that to the list of stretch goals for those that want to do that. But either way, I'm done because I'm not stretching here. I don't need to stretch. So I'll do git add, git commit, finished part 4, git push. And there you go. And that's part 4. We're almost done. Okay, now we're ready to tackle the last part of this assignment, part 5, which is the character count program, which we see here is a program that takes a string as input and counts how many of each character are in that string. Now, this is probably the most complicated of the programs that we've done. Right, this one will actually involve, I think, using kind of all the skills that we've talked about in this week's assignment, and it will involve a little bit more work. But I think, you know, we can get through it. So before we get started, I want to actually think about what it is this program does. And it ends up I already have a version of it complete. So let's see what it looks like. In this case, it's character comp, I called it. So this is saying this program, when we run it and we give it a string, such as hello, it's going to give us this list in order from least to greatest of how many characters are in that string. So in this case, there's 2 L's, and then there's one of the other 3. To do something more complicated, we could say, I am the model of a modern major general. And it takes this and says, hey, here we go, 8 spaces, 5 E's, 4 O's, 4 M's, 4 A's, and so forth. So that's what we're doing. So let's actually go ahead and see if we can accomplish this. Again, this might be a little bit more difficult. So we see there's actually a lot more green to-dos and not a lot of pre-written code. So this is kind of us, you know, doing something a little bit more complicated. Luckily, the first thing is something we are now pretty good at is checking to make sure we have valid input. Now, because we're accepting a string, really what we're saying is, did they include anything after did they include any argument? Because that's good enough for us. So we're saying if not input, so, right, because if it's a blank string, input will come out as false. So we're going to say a usage statement. This is a good time to remember, you want to make sure that you fill out the part at the top, the comment, for the comment template. I'm not going to do that for this assignment because at this point I think this is a good opportunity for you to try it yourself. That being said, feel free to copy that usage statement there because that's what you want it to be. All right, so this is what happens if they don't have the right stuff. Okay, good. Now let's actually move into the rest of the program. So we have to do initialize char count object to count characters. So what we're going to do, and I think as I may have mentioned, that there's a lot of different ways you could probably do this assignment. This is a way it's been set up that kind of highlights different features and different things. As a stretch goal, you're more than welcome to try to do this in different ways. Some can be more complicated, some can be less. What we're going to do is we're going to say char count is an empty object. Now the curly braces are us saying this is an object that's empty. And then turn the input into an array called characters using the split method. Let's actually go take a look at what the split method is. So we see it's a string method, and it turns a string into an array of strings by separating the string in each instance of the specified separator string. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's always good to look at kind of the demo here, or the example. Let's reset that. Okay, so we see there's this string here, and if we split by a space, then the third element of that will be Fox, or it's actually the fourth element, element 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if you do space, it separates it by words, but we actually want it by character. In this case, if you use the separator string as just no string, as blank, then the element 8, the ninth element, is K. Well, we'll see that that's actually the K in quick. So this is what we want, is a split with no string, an empty string. So let's go back and do that. So we'll say let characters equal input dot split empty string. So there we go. So we got rid of these two to-dos. Now iterate through the array to create object that has character for key and count for value. Now there's probably multiple different ways you can do this. We're going to actually use of characters. So this is going to go through each element of the array, and and for each pass through, that will be character. We could do what we did before, which is we could do also for let. Oh, funny, I forgot let for let. So we could do let I equals 0, I less than input or characters dot length I plus. Like that would work too. This is just like a cooler way to do it. Not cooler, just it's another way, and that's kind of something I wanted to highlight. So in this case, so how do we want to do this? We want to say we want char count character to be a thing. So okay, what does that mean? Really, what this is that this object is it's a series of the object has a bunch of elements, and each one is keyed to a letter. So in this case, we'll say char count of character. So let's say we use hello as a string, and the first letter it gets to is H. We're saying char count at key H is going to be something. Okay. Now, if it doesn't already, if we haven't already referenced it, it doesn't exist yet. So this is this kind of a weird thing to do. But what we're going to say is if character, or no, I'm sorry, char count character. So if there is something there already, then we're going to say char count character plus. Else char count character equals 1. Okay, so what does that mean? So let's think about real quick passing through the string hello. So this is going to say okay, and we're going to do it in alphabet in order of the word. So it says okay, for letter H, is there a char count H? No, there's not. So we're going to set H equal to 1. Now for E, is there a char count E? No, there's not. So we're going to set it equal to 1. So right now we have an object where H is 1 and E is 1. Then we're going to get to L, same thing. We're now saying L equals 1. But then we get to does there exist char count L? Yes. Well, then just add 1 to it. So now L will be 2, and then we'll add O equals 1. So that's how that works. Now, one thing we could do right now, and let's actually do this just for kind of to see how we're doing is does this work? Is what we're doing actually creating what we expect? So one thing we can do this is real lazy, is just say console.log char count. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so we'll do node 5.character count hello. Okay, so by the way, this is how it default outputs objects. So you'll see that the object we have, and this is kind of what I was trying to describe, and maybe if I'm clever, I'll put an image up in this video, is that now with the word hello, we have H, there's an element with the key of H that has the value 1, E has 1, L has 2, and O has 1. Now, if you wanted to, and let's say you didn't want to do the rest of this assignment, you would say, oh, forget about it. We'll just go through and loop through in some order and print those out. But the thing now is like, how do we get it to print in order from least to greatest? And this is where we face kind of the problem is that objects don't really have, there's no way to sort it because that's not what objects are for. That's more of an array thing. So we're going to have to sort that, which means we're going to have to put it into an array. So that's what actually this whole next block of code does. Oh, we just finished that actually. Okay. So initialize a new array called char or char array, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to say it's an array by saying those, the brackets. Now we're going to loop through every character in char count. So we'll do for let character of char count. Now we're going to say, so this part here is provided already, and that's saying we're going to create a new element, which is an object that has the key of char is whatever this character is, and then count is its count. It's a little bit weird, but it's saying that now we're going to have an array where each object is just an object with two keys with two values. Okay, and then we're going to say add that new element to char array using the push method. Okay, well let's go look up push. Okay, so we have to. Okay, so the push method adds one or more elements to the end of an array and returns the new length of the array. So we don't necessarily care about that part, but we just want to be able to add something to the array. So here it says, right, so in this case, we push these onto so we have this array of animals, pigs, goats, sheep, and then we push chickens, cats, dogs, and we get all of that. Okay, so that seems simple enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to say char r dot push new element. New element is what that stands for. Okay. Now, again, this is now a thing where we could to kind of see how we're doing, right? And once again, oh, so we have a problem. This is not something. So what did I just do there? Let the for loop with of is for objects. The for loop for in is for arrays. Or no, vice versa, sorry. Of is for arrays, in is for objects. So I used the wrong one. Luckily, it told me, hey, there's a problem with that. So it said char count is not iterable. So I was using the wrong kind of loop. Good thing to know. And if it happens to you, hopefully that's something you'll be able to figure out. But see, what we end up now is this char array, which has these four objects: char h, count 1, char e, count 1, so forth. So now we can actually sort this, right? That's actually the next thing is use the sort method with a custom compare function to sort the array by the count values, least to greatest. Oh boy, let's find out what the sort method does. Because this sounds like it's going to get complicated, right? Okay, so sort, it sorts the elements of an array in place and returns the sorted array. The default sort order is ascending. And that kind of depends on it knowing how to interpret the values, right? So we actually, because if we give it ours, it will look at those objects and not know what to do with them, right? It'll look at this object and this object and not know how to compare them, because it's looking for basically primitive data types, things like numbers, where it can just immediately compare them, or strings even, which it can compare, right? But this is a complicated object. But what do we want to sort it by? We want to sort it by count. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So we need to know about this compare function stuff. So let's see if we have a good example. So it says, so the compare function is, this is how it's going to be, is we have a function and we say, in one case we return, so if the a is less than b, we return -1. If a is greater than b, we return 1. If they're equal, we return 0. Okay, and then this is how we'd use it in context. Now, the nice thing is this is like a weird thing about JavaScript, is we can actually write kind of these basic functions in line like this. So you see this right here. This is the kind of thing we want. Return number. So we can do array name dot sort, and then we're going to say we're going to write a new function right here that has inputs a and b, and we're going to return that. A minus b. How does that work? Well, because it's going to be either negative, positive, or 0, and that's going to give us the value we want. This is a bit complicated, and I recommend reading more about this. However, we know we want to do this, except we want it to be the count value. So check this out. This is going to be exciting. Well, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but you get the point. We're going to say char r dot sort function a b. We're going to say return a dot count minus b dot count. Okay, and then do that. And then we want to output the content of the array to the console. So for I don't know what's a good name for this. Call a row. So this is an array again. So we can do of char r console.log. We'll use template literals again. We'll do row, and then char r row. Let's see, this should work. And if not, we'll find out why. Okay, that didn't work. So let's see what is it we've created now. Let's just output char r. So now it's in order that we want. Now, if we were lazy, we could just do this. Let's not do that. So we're going to say this is actually, we're going to go back to a classic array. For let I equals 0, I less than char r dot length I plus plus. Okay. Now we're just going to say console.log char r I dot char. Then actually we can do a template literal, can't we? Yeah, we'll do 1. All right, little bit. So what? This is just me messing with formatting. So we're just gonna say this is the character, and then this is the associated count. Right. There we go. So now it's actually outputting what we wanted. Whew, that was a bit of a mess. I apologize. So that's doing what it's supposed to do. And let's just clear this and try it again with something long again. So we'll say node 5 dot character count. I am the model of a modern major genital. And there we go. That output, that's the content we're looking for. So now we're done. So we're going to do the standard git add, git push, or no, git commit, finished part 5, git push. And that completes the assignment. So this is the point where you're going to want to actually make sure that everything looks right on GitHub, and then turn that in on Canvas in the associated spot, along with the rest of the prompt in Canvas. All right, and that completes assignment 5.